The Lockdown NFL podcast continues here, and stop me if you've heard this one before. Tom Brady led team comes back and wins a football game. That's exactly what happened in Week 12. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers came charging back, rallying past the Indianapolis Colts, one of the hottest teams in football, 38-31. We're going to bring on our guy David Harrison from Lockdown Bucs. And David, how big of a win was this for the Bucs to continue to kind of win back-to-back games and keep themselves entrenched in this top NFC playoff spot picture?
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, not just for the playoff implications, and obviously taking a three-game lead in the NFC South with New Orleans losing, Carolina falling behind as well, and then Atlanta, beating Jacksonville, but they're the Atlanta Falcons. You kind of expect them to kind of be their own worst enemy. So, I mean, in multiple facets, it's a huge game. But I think the biggest way this Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense has been far and away a different team at home and versus away. And I don't mean that in the typical, every team kind of either does better on the road or does better at home. That's pretty typical for an NFL team. But this team, I'm talking Jekyll and Hyde levels
Mhm.
of differences between these two. And when they're on the road, a lot of times they don't even look like a team that's worthy of a playoff mention, let alone a playoff spot. And then at home, they look like they can be one of the most dominant teams in the NFL. So for them to come out and play the second half that they did, take advantage of some of the mistakes that the Colts made on their own, and make sure that they punish them for those. It's huge. Rob Gronkowski said it's a playoff caliber win after the game, and I think he's 100% right.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, when you look at where they were last year at this time, I mean, they're already ahead of schedule. This team was 7-5 before going on the eight game win streak, 8-3 on the season. But I mean, more looking at this contest, what was it? Were the Colts able to do to kind of get off to the hot start, and how did Tampa Bay kind of come back and make the adjustments in the second half?
Yeah, a lot of Buccaneers self-inflicted penalty or injuries. You had some penalties early on. You had some bad throws from Tom Brady, and that's kind of been the weirdest part about these struggles.
Yeah,
Is usually it's other members of the team. Even go back to the Patriots and some of the slow starts they've had in their history. It's usually the rest of the team kind of struggling, and Tom is like still there, kind of saying, "Come on, guys." But really, a lot of these Buccaneer struggles, Tom is right there with the rest of the team, and offensively, they just almost look like, I don't want to say bored, but they almost kind of look like they're just not as invested as they need to be until they get hit in the mouth, until they fall behind. And now they have a reason to kind of kick it into high gear, which is very stressful for Buccaneers fans, as I experience every weekend on Twitter. But from a coverage standpoint, it kind of gives you kind of a wait and see type of atmosphere. And I've started sending out every quarter and at the half, obviously, polls on Twitter just to see where the fan base is. And I'm actually starting to notice that as we go through this experience with the 2021 Buccaneers, more and more, even down 10 points, even down multiple scores to the Indianapolis Colts at halftime, Buccaneers fans are starting to still remain confident in what
yeah.
their team is able to do, because you see that resilience and that get back, and everybody's kind of had the feeling that this week was going to be that week. But those self-inflicted wounds, and then the Indianapolis Colts, honestly, trusting Carson Wentz in the first half to take advantage of the soft coverage as they stack the box in the line of scrimmage to stop Jonathan Taylor. I think where the Colts went wrong, I think when Frank Wright and his staff go back and look at this from an education standpoint, they're going to realize they tried to stick with that obviously a little bit too long. Should have gone back to Jonathan Taylor. JT didn't get a single carry from the 8-minute mark in the second quarter until into the fourth quarter. That's honestly, I don't know how you let that
Yeah.
happen as a coaching staff. And I think that's where they're going to see they went wrong. If they turn to JT middle of the third quarter, that second drive in the third quarter, I think they have a chance of coming out with this win.
Yeah, it's an inexcusable error on. I'm sure. Yeah, absolutely. We'll probably see it play out on this week's Hard Knocks on Tuesday night. But
Yeah.
Carson Wentz was pretty spectacular. I thought he was turning back the clock pretty well in that first half. 3 touchdown passes. He had a nice run to extend a drive there. But it is odd in a 38-31 contest to say that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense kind of stepped up at the end, though. Is it fair to say?
Yeah, it's fair to say that at the end there, and you go back to that one touchdown drive they had in the second half where Jonathan Taylor finally did get involved. They finally gave him the ball, and he kind of ran the ball down their throats and really kind of bullied the Buccaneers all the way down the field and into the end zone. And Carmen Vitale, staff writer for Buccaneers.com and good friend of the show, actually said, "I really hope fans don't take that drive and forget all of the good that the Buccaneers defense did." I mean, look, five takeaways from the Indianapolis Colts, and I get that it's Carson Wentz. Believe me, I'm one of the biggest Carson Wentz detractors out there. I have been since he was coming up in the draft. I just felt like he was overevaluated, overdrafted, all of those things. So believe me, nobody agrees with kind of that sentiment than I do. But still, five takeaways against any NFL team is impressive. I don't care who you're playing or how bad anybody might be. If it's Mitch Trubisky levels of incompetence, anything like that, five takeaways is still impressive. Four on defense, one on special teams. But you have to tip your cap to those guys playing with a lot of injuries. They lost Devin White early. Vita Vea is playing through injuries. They lost Jamel Dean early in the game as well. Sean Murphy-Bunting, only his second game back from injury. So, I mean, just a lot of moving pieces in that defense. And I think they showed a lot of heart with the way they finished that game.
Yeah, I don't disagree about that at all. And they're talking about it on today's Locked on Bucs. Check it out. Of course, follow David Harrison on Twitter at DHarrison82. David, thank you so much, man.
Thank you, Bo.